All right, good morning once again. In track one this morning, I am happy to introduce to you Tim MalcomVetter, who is the Red Team Director at Walmart, to come and give you some interesting views on the dynamics back and forth between red teams and blue teams, which is always a popular topic, especially with the folks here at BlueHat. With that, I'd like to welcome to the stage Tim.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Awesome. So the title today is If We Win, We Lose. And we're going to talk about this a lot, so we're going to get this in your head. Like he said, my name's Tim. If you like this talk, you can find me on Twitter. If not, forget it. Most important thing you can know about me. How many people know what this is? This was not my actual first computer. But I actually like to claim that I've been a Microsoft customer since 1985, yet this is my first time in Redmond, so this is kind of a cool thing for me. I'm kind of geeking out a little bit here. So Tandy 1000, my first hack was on this kind of a computer way back in the day. Didn't even know it was a hack. I was cheating in text-based role-playing games. But I asked my mom, I said, hey, I'm going to come out to Microsoft and give this talk. Wouldn't it be really cool? Can you go find a picture of me in front of this old Tandy 1000 when I was a kid? And she said, we didn't take pictures of you in front of that computer. And I said, why not? Nobody knew those computers would be anything big, like it was just a toy, right? Just video games. So, but if it wasn't for that thing, I wouldn't be here today. So that's why I want to throw that up there. It's too good an opportunity. But more importantly, you guys will know me, or relevant today, is I run the Red Team program at a little company that if you can't figure out by the logo, in fact, he already said the name. I like to refer to us as the APT Group. We're going to go there. APT Group and the world's largest banana vendor, right? So why this? Because I really geek out on Walmart factoids. This is the only one that I'm going to give you. I've got a million of them. Find me afterwards, and we'll talk ad nauseum about them. The reason why I like it is Walmart sells 1 billion pounds of these per year, or as I like to say, 32 pounds a second, right? So think of 32 pounds a second of little yellow fruit leaving stores. This is just, it blows my mind every time I think about it. I geek out on it, and it's amazing. So we're kind of like the APT Group. If we were a country, we'd be like right below Sweden in terms of revenue, if revenue was GDP. So it's kind of like that, except for not really. But today, so we're actually going to be talking about this topic, if we win, we lose, and we love this term so much that we threw it on our Red Team Challenge coins, which are nice and handsome, right? They're very nice, and if you want to see one in real life, Philip's got one now, and so does Jessica, so you can go find Jessica Payne or Philip Meisner. They can show you theirs. And we put it right there on the bottom, right? So you see on the right side there, if we win, we lose, and we put it on there because I thought that's really cool, but I got to admit, I stole it. Oh, I'm sorry, you guys want to get that picture? You want to go back? So I stole it from the NSA Red Team coin. Now, arguably, our coins are much more handsome, everyone would agree, but it's on there. So, quick show of hands. How many of you are attackers in your day job? Okay. How many of you are defenders in your day job? Okay, probably 2/3 to a third, maybe more. How many of you are not Microsoft employees, just for curiosity? Okay, cool. Just wanted to know. Now, so why I like this phrase? It's a dichotomy, right? The dichotomy is that we've got this competition, and you guys all know this. You wouldn't be here probably if it wasn't for this. You probably have some pent-up aggression about this topic. On the one hand, if the Red Team does their job, right, that means we breach the company. And if we breach the company, that means the company loses. So how do we manage this? Well, first of all, keep in mind that as Red Teamers, we're not real bad guys. I'm sorry for all you guys that are attackers. This is where we're going to have to be honest. We're not real bad guys. We are pretend bad guys. If we have bad OPSEC, nobody ends up in jail, all right? Nobody ends up dead or dismembered or anything like that. We just start over. It's a new campaign. No big deal, okay? So all of you that said you were attackers, I got you on record. We've got you filmed in here. I asked you, secondly, who's a defender, and none of you raised your hands. Probably none of you, right? Red Teams are defenders first. We're going to kill some sacred cows. Ready? We're defenders first. Our job is to defend the organization that we are attacking, right? We're to make them better. If we are not defenders, then where's the return on this investment? Red Teams are expensive. We could take this labor and throw it 1,000 other places in engineering, solving problems, solving projects, staffing up operations centers and incident response teams. But no, we spend that labor to actually go out and simulate bad guys. So there's got to be a return there, which means you've got to be a defender. So with competition, there's good competition, obviously, and then there's bad competition. So let's talk about a little bit of both. So good competition. That's where we drive InfoSec improvement and innovation, right? You guys have seen this. This is one of the best things about a well-oiled red team, and I have friends that run internal red teams at several major companies. We like to share notes back and forth, and it's universal across the stage. If you can figure out how to manage this relationship, nothing drives a security program better, farther, faster than a well-oiled red team program with a nice complementary blue team, right? Nothing does it. I've never seen anything like this in my career of, too many years. So that's number one. But bad competition on the other side, we've got blue teams and red teams hating each other. And we don't want that, right? But everyone's probably seen this. You've seen this on Twitter. You've seen this on blogs. You've seen this wherever. You've heard hallway conversations at conferences or whatever. So in that bad competition, InfoSec does not improve. So there's no ROI. So we might as well just get rid of the program. So a phrase that my team likes to use, an actual mantra that we actually kind of embrace, is we say, without a doubt, we are going to break down that door, whether you like it or not. That sounds very aggressive, right? But we follow it right back up with, but we're going to be the last ones that ever do it, right? We want to break in. We're going to take whatever it takes. We're going to have to figure out how to bend over backwards. We're going to learn some new tool, whatever it is. We want to find a way to get inside that organization. But we want to make sure that we're the last ones. We don't want to leave that out there. If it's an externally facing, like we have criteria and rules of engagement and all this good stuff. And it's things like, hey, if there's a vulnerability that we popped and we left out there, that's really bad for the company. So let's pop that, close it up, pretend that we were never there, and then keep going, right? Stuff like that. We are here because we're defenders first. So that's why we put this on here. So let's keep going. So signs of unhealthy competition. You guys have all seen these. Red teams insult or alienate the blue teams. Don't raise your hands. But you guys have all probably seen this, right? Seen in the comments like, red has it easy, it's unfair, blah, blah, blah. That's actually not true. That's actually an indicator that the program's not working right. Another sign of unhealthy competition. Blue doesn't ask red for advice. Why is this a sign of bad competition? Because the blue team doesn't trust the red team, doesn't want to reach out and say, hey, we got this problem, what do you think? Because they think, if I tell this thing, I'm admitting weakness, and they're going to come exploit it, right? So they're going to hold things back close to the chest. That's another bad sign that things are not working in your program. Also, if you don't have improvement during future campaigns, in other words, if the attack plan, the same thing, worked last time, and it works a year later, or 6 months later, or whenever later, that's a sign that you have an unhealthy competition. Because either the red team's like, I'm not going to actually tell you how to fix it because I want to come back in and pop it again. Which, by the way, guys, we like video games, right? Who likes playing the same epic level video game on novice every single time? You're going to play it, you're going to beat it, you're going to start back over on novice? That's boring, right? We want to go up to intermediate, then up to advanced. We want to get that to be harder. It's more of a challenge, right? So if you don't have improvement in your campaigns, you don't have improvement from a defensive posture, and if the offense isn't getting more technical and more complicated, then this is a sign you have unhealthy competition in your program. How many people, don't raise your hand, have heard a red teamer say, I just break stuff, man. I don't fix it. Right? I just fix it. Well, yeah, okay, technically it's probably true, right? You're not the person probably writing the lines of code. You're not the person that's out there committing the change to the repository or making the configuration change or submitting the RFCs or whatever it is, right? You may not be that person, but you probably have a knowledge of how it needs to be fixed, or at least you can consult with, or you can work with, or collaborate with the other side. So having this attitude, this is bad. Here's another one. This might come as a surprise. If your red team doesn't get better, that means you have unhealthy competition, right? Because that means the blue team now is trying to keep stuff really back. We've got them. We figured out how they run the same playbook every single time. We catch these TTPs. We got these detections, but shh, don't tell them. We don't want them to get better, right? We want to get, we want to win. It's gaming the system and not learning, right? So if you see a red team that's kind of stagnating, this is a sign that there's unhealthy competition as well. And by the way, for all you red teamer guys, me included, it's on us to fix this problem, right? It's not on them. Security's been defense from day one. So the simulated offense thing, this is a new thing. So we need to understand that we're encroaching in their territory, and it's on you to take that onus of responsibility, to be owners of this first, and ultimately to stay humble, right? Because if you're not humble about this, this is always going to fail. So one day, I decided to ask myself this question. Who is the red team's customer? And I am ashamed to admit, it took me a year to come up with the answer, and it was right there in front of our face, right? It's actually a very, very simple thing. The blue team is the red team's customer, okay? That is so simple that it's probably going to blow right past you, right? The blue team is your customer. It's not the app dev owners. It's not the stakeholders of the various environments you're in. It's not the VP of whatever business unit. It's not any of that. No. If you're doing an actual adversary simulation at an enterprise level, you're simulating breaking into a business, not to a network or an app, but actually breaking into a business. So I'm not talking about the product security guys now. Your customer is your blue team. You wouldn't insult your customer, would you? That's bad for business, right? You don't want to do that. How many people have worked level 1 help desk and you insult the people that call in, and that's not good, right? You're not going to last there very long. So what I found is this was an aha moment. I'm sad. Seriously, it took me a year to figure this out. But that mindset was a game changer. As soon as I realized, wait, they're my customer, not these app dev sysadmin guys. Those are like secondary customers. They're still important. We still want to work with them, right? We still find things that they need to fix, and we want to collaborate with them to help them get better at whatever it is they're doing. But they're not our primary customer, right? And inside this red team, that means security operations centers and incident response teams. These are our customers, okay? And if they're our customers and they're our competition, this gets really odd, right? So how can you have a customer who you're also competing with? Where else in this crazy world do we see this scenario? Right here. Sparring partners. So I'm going to give a quick plug. For those of you that are really into chess and you're security nerds and you're smart and you're cerebral and you want a physical outlet just to get some steam off, go study jiu-jitsu for 6 months and then come back and complain to me if your InfoSec game isn't better, okay? It'll actually change the way you think. It's kind of almost like, it's just a nice relief. So we actually use this analogy a lot, right? And I'm going to break this in one more time before we're done. So how do we get this competition to be healthy? Leadership. It starts there. It always starts with leadership. That means it starts at the top. So for the execs in the room, that means if you don't buy into this red team program, first of all, you're the one sign off on the requisitions to hire these people. You know they're not cheap. Why would you do this, right? Unless you saw value in it. And if you just do it because Johnny QCzo down the street has a red team and you think you need to keep up, that's the wrong reason. They're going to see through this, and the whole program is going to come crumbling down because they're going to sense that you don't really have that buy-in. Next level down, the teams that run the red and blue teams, the leaders of those programs, respectively, need to be in the game, right? They need to work together. They need to have the same vision, and they need to want to improve. They need to want both sides to get better. If they only want their side to get better, it's not going to work. You got to want both sides to get better. And then they have to be detached. In this sense, this is an interesting thing. So you need to not be all emotional about it. As the red team leader, as the blue team lead, you need to be able to step back, and it's okay to let things play out. And sometimes that even means the red team lead and blue team lead, they talk. We talk and we say, hey, you know what? This bad thing's about to go down over here, right? Yeah, I see them and I see them. We could easily go cheat and go tell our respective teams, but it's more interesting sometimes to detach, step back, and let it play out, just kind of like it's an experiment, right? In fact, it's very much like psychology experiments, because you don't want to tell the subject that you're actually doing the psychology experiment because then the behavior changes. Same concept applies here. So how else do we keep competition healthy? Well, empathy. This is sometimes it's a hard one for people. The red team must be the blue team's advocate, okay? Remember about being humble? You're not just going to be humble. You're going to go out and you're going to be their advocate. And why is that? Because during debriefs, this is the best time. You've just achieved some sort of objective. You've caused some sort of business impact, right? Because you've shown that you've got some access that should not have happened. And you've got the stakeholder in that environment ready to listen. What are you going to do? Well, first thing, convince those stakeholders to give visibility to the blue team. Because I have not met a single SOC or IR program ever that says, no, man, we got all the visibility we ever need. We're cool. We're good, right? Every last one of them says we want more telemetry, we want more logs, we want more access, whatever it is, whatever the situation might be. So you're there. That checkbook is laying out. That stakeholder's got his pen ready to sign that check. Tell them, step one, we need better visibility for your blue team, right? Be their advocate. Have empathy. Number two, recognize and memorialize the blue team's accomplishments. So when things go well, when there is a struggle, when there is a speed bump, even if it's just a speed bump, make a big deal about it, right? Show them that this is really good. We want to encourage and reward that behavior. In fact, that challenge coin that I showed you earlier, I meant to mention earlier, we actually use those as rewards. So when we have somebody inside of one of our red team campaigns that does something really good, whether it's a response tactic or I recently was in a store in one of our other markets where some store managers actually thwarted some of our social engineering attempts. Like they kept asking really good follow-up questions, and we ran out of excuses for why we had the reason to be in the store without permission. And they eventually said, nah, go away, right? So when that happens, this is great. So we went back and I said, hey, thank you very much for doing this. You're doing your job, and we give these things out as tokens, right? And so in this case, that's not straight up blue, that's more of a stakeholder. But do it for your blue teams as well. So if they contain you in a short amount of time and you're caught off guard and you don't know why, don't get angry that you somehow screwed up and lost your shell. Be like, slow clap that out and be like, we're really, super impressed. I don't know what we did. We haven't figured it out. We're going to have to debrief and figure out what the indicator was that you guys latched in on. But man, that was awesome. That means you got better, which means we're going to have to ramp up our game. Always see it as an opportunity. Also, constantly consider how to help out blue. So when that latest tweet, that newest thing that came out, that new attack method, that new exploit code, that latest TTP, that tool, whatever it is, think about the best way to get that in front of your blue team. Maybe that's sharing links right away. Maybe that's sitting back and saying, okay, I've got 3 more campaigns in the pipeline. I can introduce this TTP here, here, and here, and we can do this sort of thing. Like, figure out what it is and try to figure out how you can get that in front of your blue team, right? That's your goal. Your goal is to train them up and make them better, not to sit on it and go, haha, this is going to be really cool. They're not going to see this coming. That's the wrong attitude, right? And then conversely, the blue teams, since there's 2/3 or 3/4 of you are on this side, track how the red teams have made you better. It's the same concept, memorialize and thank them, right? So like, if there's detections that you now have in your environment because they ran a campaign and they snuck something by, and then afterwards you're like, okay, we're gonna go figure this out. We're gonna go make a detection for this thing. Go make a big deal about that. Track it and thank them for that, right? Also, likewise, this is a two-way street. Constantly consider how you can help the red team out, right? So if you keep catching them the same way, don't go, hee, they suck. Don't do that. Sit here and think, you know what? If I keep catching them this way, then we're not getting challenged appropriately. And if I'm not in a spot that's uncomfortable, I'm not growing, right? So we need to figure out how in the world I can help them out. And you just, it's two ways. So if we've got this competition and it's healthy, competition ultimately leads to scoring. This might be, even if how many people out here have kids like in soccer and you don't keep score or whatever, but all the parents really do, right? You all really know, right? There's no such thing. So we keep score. So scoring ultimately leads to metrics. Managers love metrics. That's what it is. Turns out pure red team metrics are hard. They're really, really hard. Spent a lot of time trying to think about how I can make my management happy with the metrics we can provide. And I'm going to give you some today that I've come up with. Just a couple. These aren't necessarily great, but they're pretty good. Okay? First one, what I like to call MITRE ATT&CK bingo. How many people are familiar with MITRE ATT&CK? All of your hands should be up. Every last one of your hands should be up. It's one of the coolest tools that has come out in InfoSec as an industry in the last, for as long as I can remember. So what we do is we actually literally cover up, we take that matrix and treat it like a bingo card, and we go track and reflect on every campaign, and we mark which TTPs we covered up, which ones we used, right? We mark them. And then we look at a rolling 12-month period, and we say, how many of these did we actually use? And then what's really fun for all you red team guys? You're going to see your watering holes. You're going to see your common things, and you're going to see your weakness, and it's not going to feel good. Because you're going to be like, oh man, I only ever do these 3 TTPs in this column. Why do we do that? And because I know roughly what these are, but I'm not familiar with it, it's uncomfortable. Well, guess what? It's an opportunity to grow. So you get to increase your TTP coverage, which is good for your blue team. They get to see more things. It's more diverse. You improve your detections all around. And at the same time, you as a red teamer get to learn new tricks. Blue team gets to come up with new detections. Geeks like problems to solve. This is a win-win situation. Here's another one. Intentional indicators of compromise. This is tradecraft that you expect to get caught. So this could be something like, we know we have this control in our environment. We've got this hypothesis that if this TTP occurs, this detection mechanism will see it. And it will land in front of a SOC analyst. It'll be on their glass. They will say this requires more intervention, throw it over to an incident response handler, and within whatever that SLA is, they're going to respond. Okay? That's great. So every once in a while, just roll one of those in. Make a campaign where your goal, your hypothesis is we will get caught. Okay? Why? For a couple reasons. One, it demonstrates that the red team is training the blue team, and we're not here to win. We're here to make sure controls work. We're here to make sure that stuff still, process hasn't broken for some reason. And the red team automation space, which I hate that terminology, to me it's really kind of controls, unit testing, integration testing, if you're more of a software developer kind of a background. I don't like the other term. But if you've got that in your environment, that's great. This kind of helps with that. But you can do this manually too, because automated tools are great, but sometimes a human can find a way that there's something broken in the process, right? So still do this. If for no other reason than you expect to get caught and it shows, hey, we're here to help you. We're here to make sure that you get better. Also, this allows you to simulate a specific adversary. So if you've got a threat intel program that says, hey, these adversaries, adversary X, Y, and Z, are likely targets for your business, and they do these sorts of things, and you've got that intel, you can go say, hey, we've got these controls that detect these behaviors. Let's go emulate those behaviors. Let's go intentionally get caught using these behaviors to make sure that our company's actually safe, right? That we're protected, that we're ready, because again, we're defenders first. Here's another one. I actually got this from Jameson Shears, who's the Red Team Director at Bank of America. Give him a little plug. FAIR. Who's familiar with FAIR? Anybody? The financial accounting? I think it was like 3 hands. That's awesome. So FAIR ROI. So FAIR is the financial accounting information risk model, something like that. It's an actuarial model, right? That if you're an insurance agent, you would actually, or if you're an insurance underwriter, you would go through to calculate what is the dollar band that would have happened had this story not been a red team campaign, but actually been a breach story. And so you play that out, you have somebody calculate this out and say, okay, here's what the tangible dollars would have been to the business impact dollars, right? Now, just go take that and make sure that it's greater than your operational expenses for your red team. That's simple, right? Are you finding more risk than your red team costs, right? And as I'm talking salaries, benefits, tools, and travel. And do that over a monthly basis, over an annual basis, and just make sure that you've got value here. Or are you finding stupid things you're chasing, these diminishing returns? Small, weird things that don't actually have tangible risk. It's just a way to put some science behind that. Here's another one. We do this one a lot too. Projects that are created as a result of red team campaigns. So if you're doing pen testing and you find a vulnerability, your finding is typically something that's very discrete. I've got a password that needs to rotate. I got a patch that needs to be applied. I got a line of code that needs to change. I got something like that. It's something that's more finite, right? When you're doing red team and all, as many holds barred kind of concept, as much as the gloves can come off, and still within the confines of the law. When you do that kind of testing, what you tend to find is systemic problems. We don't have this kind of detection control in the environment. Okay, how do we solve that? Well, it's not go check a box. It's go procure something. Well, that's expensive. I don't have a budget for that this year. You have to, these things take time sometimes, right? Or it's, hey, there's a broken process here. Well, you can't just go patch a process. You have to go instill a process, teach people, get people on board. This stuff takes time, takes projects, takes PMs, et cetera. So track all of that stuff, right? It's the number of projects that are created basically as remediation steps for red team findings. Track that, because I bet if you have a really healthy red team program, your engineering program will probably 50% or more of the projects that are in their plate or in their hopper will probably be coming out of your red team. All right, think about that. So some blue metrics, these are a lot easier. You guys have seen these before, and I call these blue metrics straight up blue because while red can influence them, blue ultimately owns them, right? So these are things like mean time to containment. Yeah, red teams can we can kind of fudge this. So if you made this and say, okay, we're gonna measure the red team's mean time to containment. Well, guess what I'm gonna do to cheat this dumb stat? I'm gonna tell my team, hey, go drop this malware on this box that has 3-week callbacks, and then don't do nothing with it the first 5 callbacks. We win. That's stupid, right? It doesn't do anything. So what we actually use to measure this is that first indicator on the host. What's that first thing? Is either privilege escalation or a lateral movement type step. Where did that happen? Okay, that's the point of action. So I can't just cheat this metric and say, okay, I threw a payload out here, somebody clicked whatever it is, and I got this thing landed on a workstation, and I'm just going to sit on it for a month because I want my score to look good. That's stupid. Likewise, mean time to eradication. Obviously, containment's one thing, getting it out of the environment's another. And then vulnerability remediation. This goes back to that whole project concept, right? So we found the stuff. We're going to have to create this whole big project, and it's going to take 19 years to solve it. That's not good, right? So we've got the scoring. Scoring leads to comparison, right? If you know that this particular thing did better than this thing, the reality of the world is somebody always has to be on top. It doesn't matter what it is. There are no participation trophies in InfoSec, right? Somebody's on the top, somebody's got the best program, and that means somebody's on the bottom, and they've got the worst program. And the reality is almost everybody's somewhere in between. So what I sit and ponder about it a lot is how can a red team program actually help score? Is there a way we could score a security program? Man, and this is lame. It's not very science. This is very back of the envelope, but this is kind of just some insight, okay? So I said, hey, you know what? There's this old guy named Heraclitus. He's from 500 BC-ish. Maybe he can help us out. He's got this really cool quote. By the way, disclaimer, the internet thinks this quote belongs to Heraclitus, but we don't have confirmed attribution. You guys know how the internet works. Somebody in 1994 posted this someplace, and everybody's been retweeting it and reposting it and whatever, and it's taken on its all new lore, and there's people that are refuting it and whatever. I apologize. Also, I'm not even sure if that's Heraclitus in the statue, okay? And when I Google it, he comes up, but I can't even find what museum this statue's living in or where. I mean, don't know. It's a cool statue, though. Looks old. But it's still a fun quote. And we're not historians here, right? We're InfoSec people. And I'm really just trying to bring a little bit of this to InfoSec instead of this, right? So this is where we're going to go. I really get motivated by this guy. So we're going to read this and pretend it's all 100% real. So out of every 100 soldiers, 10 shouldn't even be there. 80 are just targets. 9 are the real fighters, and we're lucky to have them, for they make the battle. Ah, but the one is a warrior, and will bring the others back. Okay? I love this. Like, there's very obviously, there's a class system set up here. So I read this one day, and I said, hey, what would this look like in InfoSec? And could this be the way that I assess red team targets? Like, we go after this organization? Can I use this? Can I put you in a bucket? And is my org, ultimately, that's what we all want to know. Are we the one? So I said, you know what would this really look like? So let's break this down. Again, we've got the 10, the 80, the 9, and the 1, and this is just Tim's random thoughts after doing this a lot. Okay? So let's start with the 10 that shouldn't even be here. What does that look like? Default credentials are everywhere, right? No surprise. This shouldn't surprise anyone in this room. There's no multi-factor authentication. Everything's single factor, and it's default. Passwords are all over the place, including in your email, your flat files, and your ticketing systems and whatever, and most of that stuff's internet-facing, single factor. Thank you very much for even more credentials. There's weak blue team C2, command and control. Yes, blue teams have command and control. You guys sell a couple of them, right? It's important to note, because as a bad guy, I think, how can I use these things for my command and control? So think of this in your terms, right? So also, they have zero egress friction, right? Stuff just leaves the network. It's easy. Logs, what logs? There are no logs, but that's OK, because nobody's responsible for monitoring them anyway. And mean time to compromise, we can measure this in minutes with a good red team, like minutes. We've had some like this. So obviously, no one wants to be that. So let's talk about the 80 that are just targets. In this case, one of the things I find is that the adversary's path is textbook predictable. What I mean by this is you go look at random InfoSec pen tester dude's blog post from 2016, how he says how I got domain admin and whatever, 5 steps. This will work. It's like just patch. It's like, you know, paint by numbers, right? You don't have to do anything complicated. Just literally follow the steps. Learn how the tools work. Run the tools. Done. Okay. Users have month and year or season and year passwords. Yes. September 18, autumn 2018, or I love this. I can't even say it. Septiembre 18, otoño 18. By the way, this is one of the cool things in InfoSec that actually transcends cultures. We've seen this in multiple languages. You know, if there's any impact we've had to the world, it's that we've decided, hey, we're going to make people change their passwords every 60 or 90 days, and then we're going to affect all pattern of human behavior when it comes to creating passwords. Whatever language or whatever culture they're in, they're going to do this. I'm still figuring out how to do this in like Mandarin. I haven't figured that out yet, but I'm sure it's probably there, right? So thankfully, you guys released. Do we have anyone from the Azure AD team? Thank you for this. Thank you for this. So you can ban, you guys, if you don't know this already, Azure AD supports banning blacklisted passwords, right? So I can come up with a word list, and we can blacklist those, and that's great. Anybody from the old legacy on-prem AD team want to raise your hand? Can I please make one formal request of you? I want this in all of the legacy on-prem with as cool of a user experience, as simple and as clean as that, because there are so many organizations out there where this is literally, we red teamers, we joke about the master key into any organization is month and year or season and year password. Can you please make blacklisting of passwords in AD a reality? Also, while you're on that note, if I may, so I got the bully pulpit here, can you please also make that user experience on the login editable by the organization. For example, I Control-Alt-Delete, change my password, and I get there, and I get, there's text that my org can say, because we've got a custom policy. Thou shalt not use company names. Thou shalt not use this. These things are like bad blacklisted things, so that I don't just get this weird experience where I go and I put this password in, September 18, and I go, it doesn't meet complexity requirements. And I'm like, why not? I don't understand. Why is that not? I mean, it's the uppercase, lowercase numbers. We got 3 of the 4. It's more than 7. What's wrong? What's wrong with you people, right? We need to be able to customize that and give them a better experience. Another thing we find with these guys, incorrectly deployed two-factor authentication. This is one of my favorite ones. For example, internet-facing two-factor auth enrollment via one-factor auth. This is actually a classic blunder, just like a land war in Asia or a battle of the wits with a Sicilian when death is on the line. Okay? I love this. I made that. I'm sorry. Sorry you have to see that. But anyway, so here's another one. Prompt for the password first. You guys have seen this. Web apps do this all the time. This is especially bad in web applications. And then if the AD password is good, we go back and we prompt for the token. Why is this a problem? Because I can password spray this thing. I can go and send out September 2018 across everybody, and I don't care if I just want to see that response come back that says, okay, now you need to go to this next step. I now know your AD password. But you're like, but it doesn't have access. What's going on? Well, yeah, I don't have your token yet. But maybe I can't password spray on this other single factor endpoint because you've got good detection controls there, or you've got lockouts or thresholds or something. But if I can get your credential on this other thing, I can come hit. But that's cheating. Yeah, that's cheating. We do that. We do that all the time. So think about this. You want to present them at the same time, and if you want to really geek out over this, you got to be very, very careful about timing attacks. Like if I can tell there's a timing differential between the password being incorrect versus the one-time passcode, because you think about this, it makes sense, right? In code, if AD password, okay, LDAP. Okay, good. Okay, if good, okay, now I'm going to make a second call. Okay, that's a really long set of I/O calls, right? If AD password is invalid, nope, just return. Bam. Oh, that's a much shorter set of I/O calls. 1 I/O versus 2 I/O. I have a much, much faster response time. So these are really hard problems. I don't know that any product has actually really solved this. So be thinking about that. Also, if you're one of the 80 that are just targets, the adversary ingress is your front door. What I mean by that is your VPN, your portals, your email, your internet-facing remote desktop protocol, sitting out in Azure. And there's no consideration for impossible travelers. I love this term, impossible travelers. When your user logs into VPN in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and then we log in 5 minutes later from Redmond, Washington, anybody see a problem with that, right? Like maybe this is an issue. This is also a really common one. You've got antivirus on. Everybody likes to ding on antivirus, right? Signature-based antivirus is so dead, it's lame, we can bypass it. Yes. Those things are true. But it's a layer, right? We have layers of controls, and these layers are important. If you have AV on, and it's gobbling up and swallowing our files because we dropped Mimikatz on the box, okay? Somewhere there's a log that said, Mimikatz was dropped on your domain controller. And you ignored it. And you had an opportunity to know there's somebody who was in your environment doing something stupid. Maybe we thought we were clever. Okay, that's fine. So if you don't pay attention to this, what this gives us is this just turns it into a puzzle. Okay, how many permutations of Mimikatz do I have to get? How many changes do I have to make before I get the right permutation that will actually execute and bypass your signatures? No one's watching, so it's just me versus Sudoku, and the timeline it's endless, right? This is lame. Don't do this. You got to watch. And then there's no friction against commodity attack tools with default settings. I'll use Mimikatz again as an example. If I generate a golden ticket and I pass it, and it's got a 10-year Kerberos lifespan, and that 10-year-old ticket or that Kerberos ticket that doesn't expire for 10 years is passed in your logs, why aren't you like freaking out about that? They should only be 8 hours, right? There's things like this. Learn how these tools work. There's defaults in all of them. I know Benjamin's here somewhere because I saw him on Twitter. He's put all kinds of really clever things in there to catch idiots that use this tool without thinking, right? He's made it where it's customizable, but there's stuff in there you can catch. He's a smart guy that he was able to play both sides like that. So find those commodity attack tools, those default settings, right? And then, of course, C2, command and control, sails right through to uncategorized domain. Hey, the domain was categorized 3 days ago. Hey, we hired this third-party red team company, and the SAO was signed 28 days ago, and the domain was purchased 25 days ago. Totally legit. Let it go, right? This is a problem if you're not blocking this kind of traffic. And then, of course, no network segmentation. So along those lines of no network segmentation, I bet you have Azure clients right now that don't know how to block Azure to Azure traffic and have never thought that there's another tenant inside of Azure that might actually be malicious and trying to attack them. Why do I know that? Because we did it. Right? We would go spin up a, and by the way, Philip, thank you guys. We registered it with Red Team at wall-mart.com, and when our entity said, what's going on with this Azure IP, they said, I don't know, aren't you the same company? It says registered to Red Team at walmart.com. It's like, thanks guys. Yeah, so we don't do that anymore, we've changed the policy. But anyway, think about this. Maybe if you are not blocking Azure to Azure traffic or whatever your multi-tenant type environment might be, you need to think, like, A, can I do it? B, would I even know the difference between good and bad? One of the fun things that sometimes happens is the engineers will sit there and spin, go, something is misconfigured in this environment because it's trying to authenticate against this API like 42 times a second. Obviously, we just have something out of sync here, and nothing bad could ever be happening because it's Azure, it's our Azure, right? Wait, it's not? So, and then we also have personnel that are responsible, in quotes, for monitoring. These are, I love this. Smaller companies is really common. You get the PCI guy, and the PCI guy is also the monitoring dude. He's got a SIM. It's turned on. Logs go to it. He doesn't look at it. But according to the QSA report that goes out the rock, there's somebody, line item, on there. John Smith is responsible for looking at this thing. And John Smith's also, he's writing paper policy, like written policies one day. He's dealing with spam the next day. He's putting out fires. He's installing the new things. He's running the projects. Is he really properly incented? Can he focus on that? No. Divided attention. And then, of course, adversaries find data somewhere and the defenders didn't even know about. This is really common. It's really, really hard to go back to fundamentals, right? Asset inventory. So, and then we see this too sometimes. Something gets detected. There's an indicator. They see it and they go, we got this, bro. Gonna change that password, all good, right? And that's it. They don't stop and think, root cause. How did root cause get it, right? They're not incident handlers. It is really, really hard to do incident response correctly. Really, really hard. You can't be an amateur at it. You can't not think this through. Call in somebody who's good at it because I promise you're gonna make a mistake. And then, of course, normalcy bias, right? Indicators are actually written off as false positives. Oh, that's just whatever tool. It is normal for Mimikatz to run on DC. No big deal. So, and if you got no IR playbooks, that means you have, finish this with me, ready? A failure plan is a plan to fail, right? So, mean time to compromise an organization like this is probably 72 hours. There's going to be some speed bumps. There's going to be some stuff in there. It's going to take some time to kind of learn the environment, but it's not going to be terribly hard, and it's going to be basically like solving a really complicated Sudoku. That's all it really is. So let's move on. This is where it starts to get fun. Hopefully, everyone in this organization is at least here, everyone in this room, right? 9 are the real fighters, and we're lucky to have them. Okay? Here's what I think the real fighters look like. Almost all external authentication is two-factor. I say almost all because there's always that weird lagging thing. There's that legacy thing that can't go away. There's that business process we haven't figured out, that partner that I can't quite get into the network the way I want them to. Whatever it is, there's usually something, but we got most of it figured out. Okay, that's good. There's a SOC. We actually have one. We actually have incentives. They're supposed to do monitoring. They're not a SOC / project engineer type person. They have a single purpose, right? And then they have training. They're actually like, we invest in them. We want them to get better. We want them to get smarter. And also, by the way, a really good SOC is probably going to keep in mind that, at least what we say at Walmart is burnout in a SOC analyst role. Somebody that's sitting in front of a console every single day, 18 to 24 months, right? You don't want them in front of the console much more than that. After about that point, they start normalcy bias. All kinds of things start to happen. Some of them, it's stress. It's like air traffic controller type stress. You don't want somebody in that role for that long. You need to come up with a pipeline to figure out how to bring talent in, get them up to speed. Training takes forever to get them really up where they can fly on their own. Then they fly on their own for a brief amount of time, and then you need to be thinking about where am I going to get these? How am I going to help this person's career? I need to get this person somewhere else. Maybe it's a supervisory role inside the SOC. Maybe it's into an engineering role outside of InfoSec. Maybe it's like this stuff's not for me. I hate it. Whatever it is, you need to be thinking about that. And of course, they have most of the logs. No one ever has all the logs they want, but they have most of them. They have enough. They have the basics. They have an instant response team. Maybe this is a couple people inside the SOC who are like senior people, and they've got a playbook, some sort of playbook. It's simple, maybe not every single use case, but it's there, right? Ironically, or unfortunately, handlers from time to time will make hasty containment steps. What do I mean by that? They will see something. They will mostly have a grasp of what's going on. They will miss some detail because they are feeling under the time clock pressure to do something about this problem. And they take an action, And that action basically just reveals to the adversary, I saw you, but I didn't really see everything, right? This is actually worse sometimes than doing nothing. This is a hard thing to swallow, and this is where it takes a lot of discipline to do this right. And the defaults on commodity attack tools are blocked. So you figured out, you've downloaded all the scripts and all the tools, you've run them, you've got detections for them, you know what these things look like, you're up to speed on stuff, right? And then, of course, when that commodity malware does make it into an environment and it does trip a signature someplace, you actually look at the box and you say, hey, you know what? Maybe it's not a legit thing that Mimikatz is running on this machine, right? Or whatever it is. And the egress filters present significant friction to C2. What I mean by that is things like, if you got a brand new registered domain, so you hired that third-party team, and they came in and they did their testing, and that domain is like 12 days old, this stuff gets blocked, right? Also, you have SSL decryption, right? So when they do their thing, you decrypt it, you go an IPS on it, you go look at that, that's PowerShell Empire, I see, because they didn't change the cookie value thing, which that's a little TTP trick, by the way. The cookie equals is the signature that pretty much all IPSs use. You didn't even change that, man. Everybody caught you. It must be this high to ride, right? Impossible travelers are noticed right of bank. So we got the event, and then just after the event, we're looking backwards and going, whoa, why do we have connections from both Sao Paulo and Redmond, Washington at the same time? Something is not good here. Now let's chase this back and use this as intelligence to figure out how to respond. Plug. Jessica? I heard a giggle. So for all of you that don't have a good threat hunting program out there, use the tool that Jessica put out there, the Weffels. Did I say that right? Okay. Use that. Go figure out how to actually do this. It's really not hard. One of the things I like about her is that she makes this really simple. It is a lot simpler than people think it is, right? Go out there and look for those common indicators and build a hunt program. So let's move on. But the one. One is a warrior and will bring the others back. What does this look like? To me, all external authentication is multi-factor. There is no single factor, period. Everything is figured out. They don't even have that password then token thing. That's all sorted, right? The SOC is world-class and process-driven. It's not ad hoc. It's not like, well, if Johnny gets it versus Susie gets it versus, they all work the same way, right? Incident handlers are patient. They will sit there months, if necessary, if it's a sophisticated adversary, and watch what in the world's happening before they take any rash containment steps, because they want to make sure they understand all of the points of infection. They want to see everything there, and they want to make a one fell swoop containment step. And that's really hard to do, right? To think that there's a bad guy in your environment for that long. But there's actual incidents where this has happened, right? So nothing default or textbook works for the adversary. My best example for this, and I get all kinds of hate on Twitter when I talk about this. Typical privilege escalation stuff. So your normal red team pen tester dude likes to talk about how we got local admin and domain admin. Guess what? In this environment, that's stupid. If you got the one, this is going to be a hard target to escalate locally, and it's going to be a really hard target, very, very hard target. If you've got, like, say, an Active Directory Red Forest model, really, really hard target to get to domain admin. So don't even do it. There's going to be so many indicators, you're going to get caught left, right, and Sunday, right? So what are we going to do instead? Actually, on that note, what I think is the single most efficient attack in this space, let's say I want HR data and I'm targeting somebody at this organization. In this case, in the one type of organization, what I'm going to do is I'm going to recon who the HR people are that are going to likely have that data that I want. I'm going to spearfish that one person. I'm going to live on that one endpoint. I'm going to go ride whatever connections they have to that app, that resource, that database, whatever it is. I'm going to pull that data off that one resource. I'm going to exfil it off that one endpoint, and I'm done. I'm not going to jump around the network. I'm not going to do that. Domain admin is like, I've dropped into this forest. I'm going to climb this mountain to look around to see where the stuff is. That's so stupid. You're out and exposed. That's if you are a high-value target type organization, this kind of stuff is going to get caught. So impossible travelers and also cloud provider IPs are detected left of bank. So before the bad thing happens, we're looking at like, dude, we don't even accept authentication traffic from AWS or Google Cloud or Azure. We don't even, like, nobody has the right reason to come to our VPN from Azure, period. If there's no business case for it, block it. If watching, hey, I saw you log in from here and here and here. You guys see this in consumer grade experience type technologies where, hey, you're logged in from this device and this location and this device and this location. We need to figure out how to build that for the enterprise and make that available, right? And then egress friction is such a massive challenge. In this case, one of the things I'll give you, I said I was only going to give you one Walmart stat. We actually have 39 petabytes of rolling PCAPs at any point in time. That really sucks for a red teamer, right? You buy a brand new domain, you let that thing age like a fine wine for 6 months, you break it out and you use it that first time, guess what they do? They see this weird thing, some indicator happens somewhere along the chain, like way down later, and they go, okay, indicator, work my way back, okay, I see traffic to this domain. Show me everything forever that ever talked to this domain. Yeah, nothing since Thursday, kill it, block the domain, done. That really sucks, but it's really great for offense. So think about this. If you can capture that kind of data and make egress a challenge, focus on egress as much or more than ingress. And how you do this, things like external DNS is black hole. So my endpoint doesn't know how to find google.com. It doesn't know how to do it, right? It only knows where the proxy is, and the proxy knows where that is, and then I can apply my filters there, and I can apply my SSL or TLS decryption there, et cetera, right? And by the way, decrypt for all categories. This is another little secret. Red teamers all know that your privacy people are scared to death of decrypting medical, financial, and government traffic categorized domains. So what do we like to do? We like to figure out how to become a domain in those categories. Because if we can become a domain in those categories, you're not going to decrypt us, and then the signatures are not going to be seen, and we're right through the blind spot. So figure out how to do this. This is going to be segregation of duties, maybe having 2 tiers of decryption where you've got this other tier and you got trusted people and it's very few people, and maybe like the whole nuclear launch codes 2 people get in or whatever. Figure that out. We have tech where we can solve these problems, where we can make it mitigated and still monitor this data. By the way, if you've ever heard anyone say, red's got it so easy, blue teams have to have it right all the time, and it's, all red needs is blue to mess up once and then they win. That is so lame. Flip that. You have the opportunity. Make it where all red has to do is mess up one time, and you've burned not only their artifacts, their binaries, their documents, whatever it is, but also their tactics, techniques, and procedures. Hey, we know that they move laterally using WMI. Whatever it is, figure that out. Burn the whole thing to the ground. Look at it the other way around. If you're a tough target, if you're the one, this is what that looks like. And deception controls, I won't talk about this a lot, but if you would ask me 12 years ago if I thought very much about honeypots, I would have said, no, that's a joke, right? Like it's for somebody doing research on the internet. Hey, if you have a really, really well thought out, it doesn't have to be expensive, it could be free, just something that a smart engineer spends some time going, I've got this file share and I've got this other thing that looks very much like this. You can configure stuff that looks like it belongs in your environment and then just write log collectors basically. If somebody touches this thing, whoop, somebody's poking around. You'll not just get external adversaries, but you'll get malicious insiders that are poking around. These things are super powerful. They're very high fidelity if you do it right, and they're not expensive. They just take time, labor to figure out how to make it look right in your environment. So when we have this comparison, all that, we've got these nice little 4 classes that I'm kind of throwing out here. This comparison leads to this opportunity, and this opportunity is how do we get more organizations from into the 9 or into the 1? We want to get them up. We want to move everybody up. How do we do that? Obviously, this is our opportunity, right? That's redundant. Well, the first thing, red team programs keep us grounded, okay? That's one thing. It's a reality check. I love using this phrase all the time. We execute the fundamentals flawlessly. You probably have seen this phrase. Amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until they cannot get it wrong, okay? There you go. That's all you need to know about InfoSec. Go and do that. Figure out how to do the fundamental things absolutely flawlessly every time, and don't chase the vendor hype. Just do that, and you'll win, period. For example, I love picking on this. Don't worry about HSMs and the crypto magic fairy dust that you have that protects your customer data and your credit cards when season-of-year passwords still get you into the network, right? This is an example of we have our risk balance out of scope, right? We're unbalanced. So in this scenario, the red team's goal, like I've said a couple times, we want to stretch the blue team to discomfort. And blue teams, you need to love it there. You need to just dig in and be happy with that discomfort, because that means you're growing. You don't, if you're lifting weights, you have to put that pressure and you have to tear muscles in order to get bigger, right? This is what this is. Enjoy it, endure it, and have pleasure in it, okay? And then we have that nice little proverb, right? Iron sharpens iron. I like to use this phrase all the time. Or, as we say in jiu-jitsu, you win or you learn, okay? Sometimes we learn a lot, right? Seriously, go check this out and see if it doesn't make your InfoSec game better. So, to recap, competition is natural. Can't get away from it. We just need to figure out how to exploit all the positive aspects of it. And if we do that, there is nothing in InfoSec like a well-oiled, healthy red-blue relationship. You won't see anything drive progress across an entire organization better than this, in my opinion. Okay? So, with that, do you have any questions? So I have time.
Hello, my name is Saurabh. I'm a Microsoft PFE here. A few days back, I was reading one article with one of the CSO of a big healthcare provider, wherein he mentions more about behavior-based security instead of putting static controls. And he mentioned that that is the future. With Walmart perspective, are you guys doing something in-house, something in behavior-based security? Are you thinking about it? Or are you leveraging cloud providers for that? Any thoughts on that part?
So I will first take this and say Walmart takes security so seriously that we will not talk about all of our security controls or I will lose my job. And I love my job. So I won't answer specifically about that. I'll give you my off-the-cuff opinion. If you're looking at user behavior, that means you're getting closer to monitoring your environment. If you would have asked me 10, 15 years ago if I thought things like prevention controls, detection controls, or response controls, where should you invest the most? I'd be like, well, no doubt, prevention. We're going to invest really high in prevention, and detection and response is okay. But you shouldn't get to detection and response unless that means your prevention controls failed, that means you did something wrong, and security is really about just getting this recipe of things right. You just got this recipe wrong. You need to go back and do your chemistry again, right? So now flip forward to my old age. I will tell you, you know what? I've gone up against organizations that have mediocre at best prevention controls, but rock solid detection and response controls, and guess what? It sucks to go against them. They are good. So anything that puts the emphasis of a security program, in my opinion, towards detection and response, that's good. If you do user behavior analysis, I will hesitate because usually that means vendors are going to sprinkle in, what's the two words everyone's thinking right now? Machine learning. Yes, I heard it. So I didn't even have to say it. Machine learning, right? And there's a lot of hype around that, so I will wait. I'm not going to just advocate one or the other. But if it puts you towards looking at your environment and actually monitoring your environment, you're headed in that right direction. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I got one.
Yeah.
A lot of our customers have really smart red blue teams, and they have really smart identity people and operators, but they don't have the same knowledge around cyber. How do you translate the lessons learned to those people that are doing configuration of Active Directory, certificate management, and those kinds of things?
So when you say cyber, do you mean like nation states doing nation state things?
Well, I mean, they may be deep on AD security fundamentals or under Windows side understand ACLs, but they don't know much about lateral movement in a lot of cases, or they don't know how people are actually escalating privileges.
So really simple solution to that. Bring them as stakeholders into Red Team debriefs. If they don't know, let them see it. Read them in. Let them participate. Let them feel that it's like a kick in the gut and it sucks and you want to get right back up and you never have it happen again, right? So let them go through that in a good way. Make sure your Red Team leaders are very careful and you have good bedside manner, right? So you can help them through that and make sure they understand, hey, you know what? Yes, we achieved something bad in your environment, in their controls, in your tech stacks that you can improve, and we're going to help you get there, right? We're going to take steps, help them come up with a plan of action, get them closer to that. there's no better education out there than just experiencing it and seeing it in their own environment. It's one thing to go see it in a lab or take a class, but when you actually see it in your environment and as you walk through that debrief, you go peel the layers of the onion back and demystify all that crazy stuff and realize, oh, Red Teams really only do a bunch of really simple things. It's just a bunch of simple things combined together, which, by the way, there's another sacred cow. We don't do crazy magical things. We just do a bunch of really simple things chained together. And then they can get this because they're smart people, right? So it's not hard. Good question, though.
I think we're out of time here as we're going there. I'm sure
later.
Tim is going to be around the rest of the day if you want to come chase him down. Let's thank him for this great talk.
Thank you. Thank you very much.